Have you ever met someone who seemed like sunshine at first, but over time, you realized that warmth was just a disguise? Let me tell you something most people don't want to hear, but absolutely need to. The first step in dealing with toxic people isn't to fix them. It's to see them for who they truly are, not who you wish they could be. Not who they used to be. And certainly not the polished image they show on Sunday mornings or on social media. You have to recognize the real person hiding behind the charm, the flattery, the guilt trips, and the silent treatments. Because here's the thing, toxic people don't wear name tags. They don't walk into your life announcing their intentions. More often, they arrive with smiles, with gifts, with promises that feel like hope. And if you're not paying close attention, you'll miss the warning signs, not because they weren't there, but because you were too kind to call them out, too loyal to doubt them, too hopeful to admit the truth. There comes a time when you have to stop calling manipulation miscommunication. You have to stop excusing disrespect as just their personality. You have to stop labeling gaslighting as a misunderstanding. What's toxic is toxic. It drains your spirit, steals your joy, clouds your mind, and pulls you away from God's peace. You were never created to live in confusion. You weren't designed to tiptoe around someone's anger, or to live in constant fear of their reaction. That's not love. That's not friendship. That's not family. That's bondage. And God's truth will always set you free, if you're brave enough to face it. Spotting the red flags doesn't make you judgmental, it makes you honest. It means you're finally waking up to what's been there all along. And sometimes, the hardest part of waking up is realizing you stayed asleep for so long because you didn't want to deal with what you might see. Deep down, you knew something wasn't right. You felt it, but you kept turning the other cheek, not out of obedience, but out of fear. Fear of rocking the boat. Fear of being alone. Fear of looking too harsh. So you silenced your discernment, and that silence cost you. But now, right now, is the time to open your eyes. To admit what your soul has always known. Not everyone in your life is meant to stay. Some people are there for a reason, yes, but others are there as a lesson. And the longer you ignore that lesson, the more painful it becomes. Don't let sweet words blind you to bitter patterns. Don't let shared history convince you to stay in unhealthy proximity. Don't let good memories make you forget the misery. People will show you who they are, not in the grand moments, but in the small ones. In how they react when you succeed. In how they treat you when you set a boundary. In what they say when you're hurting. Pay attention, because the truth isn't just in what they say. It's in what they consistently do. And here's the truth. Some of us have been disrespected for so long that we've started calling it normal. We've been trained to tolerate behavior we should have walked away from years ago. We've told ourselves, that's just how they are. Maybe I'm too sensitive. If I just love them harder, they'll change. But love doesn't cure toxicity. Love doesn't fix manipulation. Love doesn't excuse control. Real love tells the truth. Real love sets boundaries. Real love walks away when peace is being strangled. God never called you to be a doormat for someone else's dysfunction. He didn't put you on this earth to live on edge, to doubt your worth, or to exist under someone else's emotional leash. That is not your portion. That is not your calling. And if you've been trapped in that cycle, hear me, you don't have to stay there. The moment you recognize a toxic person for who they are is the moment you begin to take your power back. You start to see clearly again. You reclaim your voice. You choose peace over pleasing. And my friend, that's the beginning of freedom. When God opens your eyes, He doesn't just show you what's wrong with them, He shows you what's been missing in you. The courage you thought you lost. The strength you buried under compromise. The life you were always meant to live, free from emotional survival mode. If that inner voice is whispering, "This isn't right," don't silence it. That's not paranoia. That's discernment. That's wisdom. That's God nudging you to stop excusing the poison, because no matter how pretty the glass looks, if you drink it, it will still destroy your joy. You've seen enough. You've felt enough. Now, trust what you know. That's where healing begins. Some people think distance means defeat. That if you step away, you've given up. But the truth? Sometimes the most courageous act of real love is creating space, not to punish, not to shame, but to protect. to protect the peace God planted in your soul, to guard your mind from confusion, to shield your spirit from corrosion. Because when someone keeps dragging chaos into your life, turning every interaction into a battlefield, you're not cruel for stepping back, you're wise. There's a big difference between carrying someone and being carried away by them. Too many of us have been drowning, trying to keep others afloat. We've confused loyalty with sacrifice. We've believed that enduring abuse is somehow noble. But when you allow someone to harm you over and over again without boundaries, you're not walking in grace, you're sinking in quicksand. And God did not call you to sink for someone who refuses to swim. Distance doesn't mean you've stopped caring. Sometimes, it means you care enough to stop allowing the damage to continue. It means you finally understand. And once you've recognized a toxic person for who they truly are, the next step is just as important, deciding how much access they have to your life. You can forgive someone, and still no longer give them access to you. You can genuinely wish someone well, and still walk in the opposite direction. You can love someone deeply, and still decide to close the door. Because love without truth? That's not love at all. Some of the most painful decisions you will ever make in life will come from choosing peace over presence. But hear me, peace is never accidental. Peace is intentional. It's something you protect, something you fight for, something you actively preserve. And toxic people, whether they realize it or not, will slowly chip away at that peace until you barely recognize yourself anymore. You'll start doubting your worth. You'll feel like you're walking on eggshells in your own home. You'll adjust your personality just to keep up with their mood swings. And my friend, that is not peace, that is torment. But there comes a moment, sometimes a divine, unshakable moment, when the Holy Spirit whispers to your soul, it's time. Time to stop chasing people who keep running in circles. Time to stop explaining your heart to those who mock it. Time to stop sitting at tables where your spirit isn't fed, only drained. And that time is now. We live in a culture that idolizes connection, as if simply being surrounded by people somehow makes us whole. But even Jesus knew when to withdraw. Even Jesus knew when to leave the crowd and pray alone. Even Jesus, perfect in love, walked away from those whose hearts were hardened. So why do we stay? Why do we remain in places God has been calling us out of? Often, it's because we're afraid of being alone. Afraid of what people will say. Afraid of the heavy weight of guilt. But let me remind you, guilt and conviction are not the same. Guilt keeps you in bondage. Conviction leads you to freedom. Guilt whispers, you owe them more chances. Conviction says, you've done what you could, now let me handle the rest. When you create distance, it's not about anger, it's about alignment. You're not rejecting them, you're realigning yourself with the peace of God. You're saying, I love you, but I will not let you steal my joy. I forgive you, but I will not let you tear me down. I release you, but I will not allow you to control the narrative anymore. And here's the reality, don't expect everyone to understand. Some will call you selfish. Some will say you're unforgiving. Others will twist your silence into pride. Let them talk, let them assume, because only you and God know the nights you cried, the prayers you prayed, the patience you gave. You didn't walk away too soon. In fact, you held on longer than you should have. And when you finally step away, when you finally create that space, don't rush to fill it with noise. Fill it with God. Let Him minister to the broken parts of you that kept trying to fix someone else. Let Him heal the wounds they left behind. Let Him rebuild your confidence. Let Him show you that distance is not punishment, it's preparation. He's not just taking something away from your life, He's making room for something better. Because freedom doesn't always arrive with fireworks. Sometimes it comes quietly, with stillness, with a calm you forgot was even possible. And when that calm comes, when clarity starts to set in, you'll look back and realize, this distance was the mercy of God. It wasn't rejection, it was protection. You didn't lose anything, you were rescued. And that rescue was long overdue. There will come a time when you must accept that some people are simply committed to misunderstanding you. It won't matter how calmly you explain, how carefully you clarify, or how pure your intentions are. They don't want the truth, they want control. They want to twist your words, drain your strength, and keep you locked in a cycle of endless explanations. But here's the truth that will set you free. You don't owe anyone your constant defense when God has already declared your heart. Some people aren't listening to understand. They're listening to collect ammunition. No matter how honest you are, they'll accuse you of lying. No matter how patient you are, they'll call you dramatic. No matter how much love you give, they'll say you never cared. You could pour yourself out entirely, and they would still say it wasn't enough. That's because the issue was never about what you did or didn't do. It's about the lens through which they choose to see you. So many people are exhausted, not because of the work they do, but because of the battles they keep fighting to be understood by people who don't want understanding. They want power, and the more you try to explain yourself to someone determined to be offended, the more entangled you become in their web of confusion. It's a trap, and the enemy loves it, because it drains you spiritually, mentally, and emotionally. It pulls your focus away from what God is truly trying to do in your life. You were never called to spend your energy proving your worth. That's not your role. You were not designed to perform for acceptance. Your identity does not live in their opinion. It lives in God's truth. And if they refuse to see your heart, that doesn't mean your heart is broken. It means their eyes are closed. Let them wrestle with that. Let God handle that. You keep walking in peace. There is great power in knowing when to be silent, not the silence that comes from fear, but the silence that comes from wisdom. The kind of silence that refuses to argue with foolishness. The kind of silence that no longer tries. And when you finally choose wisdom over constant defending, something shifts. You begin to understand the quiet power of saying nothing. Silence that says, "I've said enough. I've done enough. Now, I'll rest in what's true." Even Jesus himself stood silent before those who accused him, not because he lacked the words, but because he knew their hearts were already hardened. He understood that no explanation would satisfy their judgment. And if the Son of God knew when to hold his peace, don't you think we should learn the same? Stop sacrificing your peace on the altar of someone else's misunderstanding. Some people crave the last word because they are fighting their own insecurity. Let them have it. Some people need to paint you as the villain to protect their ego. Let them talk. Truth does not panic under pressure. Truth stands firm, unshaken, because it knows the light will always expose the darkness in time. You don't need to rush to your own defense when you serve a God who sees it all. He sees the words spoken behind your back, he sees the games they played, he sees the ways they twisted the story, and he sees your heart. He sees your tears. He sees the nights you lay awake, wondering if you could have said it better, done more, or somehow prevented the hurt. Let me tell you, it's not your fault. If you've searched your heart, if you've spoken in love, if you've stood in grace, and still they refuse to see you clearly, then it's not your burden to carry anymore. Release it, release the need to be right, release the desire to be understood, release the obsession with changing their mind. Because their opinion of you does not change God's plan for you. There is a sacred strength that rises when you stop defending yourself and start trusting God with the outcome. That's the moment you begin to walk in freedom. You stop chasing peace through arguments, and instead rest in the peace that surpasses understanding. You stop talking, and you start praying. You stop striving, and you start trusting. And don't be surprised when people say you've changed, because you have. You've shifted from needing their validation to walking in God's affirmation. You've moved from over-explaining to over-trusting, from desperate for approval to confident in your calling. That's not arrogance, it's alignment. So the next time they twist your silence, let them. The next time they call your peace pride, let them. The next time they accuse you of walking away without explanation, let them. You don't have to justify what God has already settled in your spirit. Keep walking, keep loving, keep living, and let your silence testify for you. Because when you're dealing with people who continually stir up trouble, bringing confusion instead of clarity, bitterness instead of blessing, you must learn this early. Your peace is far too precious to place in their hands. You cannot allow toxic people to dictate the atmosphere of your life. The truth is, if the enemy cannot destroy you, he will try to distract you. And one of his favorite weapons is the toxic spirit of another person, sent to drain your energy, steal your joy, and cloud your vision. God never called you to manage someone else's dysfunction. That burden is not yours to carry. You are not responsible for fixing people who are committed to staying broken. You are not called to babysit someone's bitterness or negotiate with their negativity. Your role is not to absorb the poison they freely pour out. Your role is to guard your heart. Scripture says plainly, guard your heart, for it is the wellspring of life. And when someone continues to pollute that well through manipulation, guilt, gaslighting, or anger, it is not unkind to protect yourself. It is not rude to set limits. It is not ungodly to say, enough is enough. There are people who will test your boundaries just to see if you mean them. They'll apologize with their lips but never change their ways. They'll smile in public and sabotage in private. And if you let them, they will convince you that it's your job to keep the relationship alive, even as they're tearing it apart. But hear me, some people don't actually want peace. They want control. They don't want reconciliation. They want dominance. They don't want unity. They want superiority. And the longer you try to be the bridge for someone who only brings fire, the sooner you'll burn out. Here's something that might free you today. Boundaries are not selfish, they're spiritual. Boundaries are not walls to keep love out, they're gates to keep destruction from coming in. From the very beginning, God created boundaries. He separated light from darkness, land from sea, day from night. Even in Eden, there were lines that should not be crossed. Yet somehow, we've believed the lie that saying no is unloving. But love without boundaries becomes slavery. Mercy without wisdom becomes manipulation. Grace without truth becomes a game. And your soul is too valuable to play games with those who have no intention of honoring your peace. Sometimes the most spiritual thing you can do is step back and let people feel the silence of your absence. You've tried talking. You've tried forgiving. You've tried meeting them halfway, then all the way. But all it did was teach them that your love had no limits. And their behavior had no consequences. That's not grace. That's dysfunction disguised as kindness. You were never created to live in survival mode, constantly bracing for the next argument, the next lie, the next emotional storm. That is not love. That is not friendship. That is not family. That is bondage. And where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty, freedom, rest, restoration, not chaos, not fear, not walking on eggshells every time you enter the room. God is not the author of confusion, but of peace. And when someone keeps bringing, as mentioned earlier, when someone continually brings chaos instead of peace, that's a clear sign, not to hate them or curse them, but to gracefully remove yourself from their reach. And yes, it will hurt, especially if that person is close to you, someone you've prayed for, shed tears over, and tried your best to help change. But remember, true change doesn't come from pressure or external force, it comes from the heart. If their heart isn't ready, no amount of sacrifice on your part can save them. Only God can do that. Only the Holy Spirit can convict. And only grace can transform a person. Your role is to step back and let Him do His work. You don't need to argue, post a statement online, gather witnesses, or win any debate. What you need is to walk in truth and hold on to your peace. The fruit of your life will speak louder than any defense you could ever make. Your peace will become your testimony. Your stillness will become your strength. And when they come looking for drama but find you resting in God, that's when you know you've won. Not the argument, but the greater battle, the battle for your soul. Some will say, you've changed. And yes, you have. You stopped trying to fix what God never asked you to carry. You stopped trying to prove yourself to people who would never see you clearly. You stopped sacrificing your peace on altars that were never holy. That's not weakness, that's wisdom. And in that wisdom, you find a calm you never knew existed, a stillness no storm can touch, a strength that doesn't shout but simply stands firm and unwavering. Sometimes the best response is no response at all. There's a sacred lesson you learn when you stop chasing those who keep walking away from your peace. A strength rises inside you when you stop begging to be seen, heard, and understood by those who have already made up their minds about you long ago. The truth is, when you stop chasing, you don't lose people, you lose chains. You lose anxiety, you lose confusion, and in return, you gain something priceless: clarity, freedom, and peace that only God can give. We live in a world that constantly urges us. Go after them. Don't let them leave. Make them understand. But the Spirit says something different. Stand still. Let the door close. Trust that what walks away was never meant to stay. Because anything, or anyone, that has to be forced to remain isn't rooted in love, but in fear, control, or insecurity. True love doesn't have to be chased. Doesn't need convincing. It stands, stays, and grows in truth, not manipulation. Many people are exhausted, not because they're out of breath, but because they're running the wrong race, chasing toxic people, hoping for approval, hoping for change, hoping for a different outcome from the same old pattern. But chasing never brings peace. It only deepens your wounds, only teaches others that you'll tolerate whatever they dish out, as long as they don't walk away. There comes a time when you have to pause and ask yourself, why am I running after people who keep proving they're not for me? Why am I wasting energy explaining myself to someone who doesn't want to understand? Why do I feel the need to prove my worth to someone who has already decided to devalue me? The answer lies deeper. Sometimes we chase not because we love too much, but because we fear what their absence says about us. We worry that if they leave, it means we weren't good enough, that we failed, that we didn't love well, or that it's all our fault. The enemy loves to sit in that silence and whisper lies into your weary soul. See? You're not worth staying for. But that's not truth. That's trauma and insecurity speaking. God never called you to live chained to the opinions of those who cannot see your true worth. Remember, not everyone who leaves your life is a loss. Some departures are deliverance in disguise. Some people leave not because you failed, but because your growth exposed their stagnation, your peace disturbed their chaos, your boundaries revealed their lack of respect. And rather than change, they choose to walk away, and you have to let them go. Don't hold the door open when God is trying to close it. Don't chase what grace is trying to release. Jesus never chased those who walked away. He loved deeply, yes. He welcomed with compassion, yes. But he never begged anyone to stay. When the rich young ruler turned back, Jesus let him go, not because he didn't care, but because true love never forces, it invites and then releases. If the Son of God didn't chase approval, neither should you. When you stop chasing, you begin to heal. You start to see clearly. You realize your worth was never meant to be held hostage by someone else's decision. You stop performing and start abiding. You stop reacting and start resting. You stop proving and start walking in purpose. A holy calm will surround you when you no longer tie your identity to who stays or who leaves. Because now you understand that those God has for you won't need to be chased, they will walk with you, grow with you, and honor the light in you instead of trying to put it out. And to those who left without cause, who misused your heart, discarded your loyalty, took advantage of your kindness, you owe them no bitterness, no explanations. You owe them silence and release. Let them go in peace. And let God handle what you couldn't fix. Because your destiny does not depend on who left, but on the one who never will. Following from the previous part, when you stop chasing those who cause you harm, you open space to receive your true purpose in life. You were never meant to chase people, but to pursue purpose, and in that pursuit, God will send the right people at the right time, with the right heart, not those who use you, but those who walk alongside you, not those who question your worth, but those who recognize and protect it. And until they come, keep walking with your head held high, your spirit whole, and your peace intact. Because when you stop chasing people, you start catching your purpose. Sometimes the hardest battles we fight aren't external, but internal. After dealing with toxic people long enough, their voices begin to echo inside you, making you question your strength, your kindness, your worth. You might look in the mirror and still see the reflection of someone they tried to break. That's why one of the most powerful things you can do in this life is reclaim your voice, the voice that speaks truth over your life. A voice not poisoned by manipulation, not silenced by fear, not distorted by someone else's bitterness. Toxic people have a way of making you doubt what you already know. They twist your words, rewrite history, and accuse you through their broken lens. If you're not careful, you'll start to shrink, not physically, but spiritually. You'll walk on eggshells, speak less, dim your light just to keep the peace. But hear me. Peace that requires you to lose yourself isn't peace, it's bondage disguised as harmony. You were never created to be silent in the face of lies. You were never called to live under the weight of someone else's dysfunction. When God calls you, He equips you with the authority to take your life back, to speak up. Stand firm, and step into truth with courage. That doesn't mean shouting or arguing with fools, or trading insults. It means standing with quiet, unwavering confidence, knowing your value isn't up for debate. See, toxic people thrive on confusion. They flourish in chaos. The more they get you to doubt yourself, the more control they have over your heart. That's why you must anchor yourself in truth, not opinion, not emotion, not memory, but truth. What does God say about you? That you are fearfully and wonderfully made. That you are the head, not the tail. That you are more than a conqueror. That you are bought with a price. That you are chosen, redeemed, and called for a purpose. When you internalize this, everything changes. You stop explaining yourself to those committed to misunderstanding you. You stop seeking validation from those blinded by their own wounds. You stop trying to earn love from those never willing to love you unconditionally. Instead, you begin walking in bold humility, not arrogance, but assurance, the kind that says, I no longer accept the role you assign me in your drama. Some won't like this version of you, the one who won't bend to manipulation, who no longer apologizes for boundaries, who won't tolerate disrespect just to keep a connection. But that's okay. Growth always offends those who benefited from your silence, confuses those who preferred you insecure, and irritates those who can't control your steps. Let them be irritated. You don't live for their comfort, you live for your calling. Your calling is too important to be drained by meaningless conversations. It's too sacred to be tangled with people unwilling to grow. And your healing matters too much to let anyone keep reopening wounds God has begun to heal. Taking your power back doesn't mean becoming cold, it means becoming clear. It means deciding not to be the emotional punching bag for someone else's pain. It means drawing a line in the sand and saying, I love you, but I will no longer sacrifice my peace to prove it. It means stepping out of the shadows of who you used to be and embracing the strength God is building inside you. Don't let anyone guilt you for walking away from dysfunction. Don't let them label your boundaries bitterness. Don't let them twist your strength into selfishness. They don't know the cost you paid to get here. They don't know the nights you cried, the prayers you prayed silently, the weight you carried. But God knows, and He is the one lifting you now, not to hurt those who hurt you, but to free you from the prison they kept you in. So walk tall, speak life, hold your peace, and don't return to the places God rescued you from. You are not who you used to be. You have grown, learned, and survived. Now it's time to thrive, not despite them, but above them, because God's hand is on your life, and His purpose for you is bigger than anyone who tried to dim your light. And when you stop shrinking, you start shining.